Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another Ranked and Reviewed. Hey, get out of my face. And today we are doing the Australian Metalcore Titans Parkway Drive. And yeah, I've been listening to these guys for a little over 13 years now. Listened to them shortly after I graduated high school. And I've been listening to them pretty much on again, off again ever since then. And for the purpose of these 7 studio albums dating back to 2005 up until their most recent release, Darker Still, just a few months ago. Really only maybe 2 or 3 albums out of the 7 that I'm not super familiar with, but the other 4 I've listened to quite a bit. But in this ranking, there's pretty much one 3-way tie. The spread's not particularly too big. I think all 7 albums are pretty solid. The weakest album got a B-, and the strongest album got like a B+. And yeah, we'll close it off with my top 10. But solid band, awesome guitar work. Winston's an insanely good vocalist. And they've kind of changed their sound a bit in recent albums. But let's go ahead and get into how I feel about that. And start with the bottom spot, which is their newest album, Darker Still. Now, like I said, every album on this ranking is worth listening to at least once. Parkway Drive has no weak albums. And upon listening to Darker Still a second time, it actually got a little bit better. So I guess a little bit of a grower of an album, but I don't think enough to strip it of its bottom spot. I think Darker Still is kind of just a more lackluster version of what they were starting to go for in Reverence, where they started to kind of slow down the tempos a bit, not shred or play fast so much, and then not just rely solely on harsh, powerful vocals, but a little bit more spoken word, a little bit of growling, a little bit of clean vocals, all of which Winston does pretty well, but I just don't think it was executed as well in Darker Still. I think Glitch does have a pretty catchy chorus. I think the title track, Darker Still, is a beautiful song, probably the best on the album. But beyond that, their weakest tracks are on this album. I don't much care for If a God Can Bleed, kind of corny if you ask me. And Land of the Lost, not really one of their best songs, but they don't have any bad or mediocre songs. They're just not all particularly great. So Darker Still, like I said, it's more heading towards that radio rock sound with, of course, that metal edge. And I just don't think it was executed as well. But still worth listening to if you're a Parkway Drive fan or not. I don't hold it against them for trying to branch out and try something new. Next up at the number 6 spot, we have Ire from 2016. This is their 5th album. And I think it's only marginally better than Darker Still, just because it's a very inconsistent album. I feel like this one has like the least identity to it. But there's just a few more high points, you know. Sound of Violence, the chorus of Dying to Believe, and the last song, Deathless. Is that what it's called? Deathless song? Those songs are all pretty solid. A couple of okay tracks like Fractures, Vice Grip, Writing on the Wall. I'm trying to remember which song. I think it's Vicious. They finally brought some of the speed back, but I know I alluded to earlier that Reverence was where they started to try to slow things and try a different sound. I actually think it was this album. And then they were kind of tiptoeing between the edges of kind of their older sound and their newer sound. Ire just kind of lacks a real identity. But this is kind of where they started to introduce a little bit of experimentation. I just kind of think 2016 was a weird year, and this was definitely a weird year for Parkway Drive. But more high moments that make this album just marginally better than Darker Still, just because they kind of held on to that heavier side just a little bit more, which I prefer. But not much else to say about it. Number 5 spot goes to Reverence from 2018, their 6th album. Much like Darker Still, Reverence does sound better on the consecutive listens. But I just think this is a much more fleshed out sound. In fact, Reverence is actually much better than Ire as well. I think Wishing Wells is one of their stronger opening tracks. I love the build-up effect of Cemetery Bloom. Like, it's just a great track. I love the tremolo picking, like almost Children of Bodom sounding riffing of "I Hope You Rot." The main riffing of Shadow Boxing is such a great song. In Blood, another solid track, and then Chronos. I think Reverence is one of the easiest albums to listen to from them, where if you're not looking for like pure speed and rage and just metalcore anger, Reverence is probably going to be one of the best albums to listen to from them. But it's not my preferred sound from them, and that's why they kind of sit, towards the middle. But these next couple of albums are only a little bit better than Reverence. I think Reverence is a great album. I remember trying to listen to it once back when it came out, but I guess my attention span just failed and I just never got into it. But now I think it's pretty solid. So next up, we pretty much have a three-way tie where they're all very close in rating, all marginally better than Reverence and all marginally better than each other. But this is where the ranking got a little bit difficult, but got it figured out. So right in the middle of the list at the number 4 spot, we have their 2012 release, Atlas, their fourth album, their middle album, and the middle spot of the ranking. How fitting. This, to me, kind of like their last true metalcore album. It's kind of raw sounding, kind of not quite as polished as, say, like Deep Blue or Horizons. It almost kind of sounds a little bit like Killing with a Smile, like the rawness of that mixed with, like, say, like the beefier, more rounded off tones that you heard in Deep Blue. They got a little bit melodic on this one, but they did keep the heaviness going. But I just think in terms of like the metalcore sound, Atlas is just kind of the most retread, most repetitive. Like they've done these sounds before, but there are great songs on here. You got Dream Run, which is very reminiscent of like a Deep Blue. You got Swing, which is just a fast, brutal, awesome song. You got the title track, which is awesome. You got the guitar work of Sleight of Hand. My favorite track on the album, one of their heaviest songs, Snake Oil and Holy Water, and then Bleed the Gray. I think where this album kind of suffers is it does kind of start on a solid note with Sparks, Old Ghost, and Dream Run, but then it kind of loses steam a little bit, aside from like the ending breakdown of Dark Days, but then towards the end. So it's got a solid bookend effect where it kind of picks up momentum again. But I had listened to this album quite a few times when it came out in 2012, and I think my favorite songs are pretty much still the same, but Snake Oil was one that I kind of probably slept on a little bit. But a lot of solid guitar work here, a lot of fleshed out stuff. Got a little bit more technical and fast again compared to Deep Blue. But yeah, that's the number 4 spot. And at the number 3 spot, just marginally better, we have Deep Blue, their third album. Their third album at the number 3 spot. Hey, I did it twice in a row. Anyway, I like the opening track, Samsara. By the way, Deep Blue is a very sentimental album for me. Summer of 2010, that was one of the best summers of my life, one of the best years of my life, and this was one of the soundtracks to it. Unrest, where they fucking introduced Drop A. Holy fuck, this album sounds fucking incredible when they play in Drop A. I don't know how to fully describe it. It's just a very heavy metalcore album with a lot of riffage. They kind of didn't do away with the lead guitar work. There's just not quite as much as there were, say, on a different album. Deliver Me is still one of my favorite songs from them, or at least off of this album. I think one of their dumbest songs is on this album, though. Home is for the Heartless. I never liked that song. I don't like oohs and woes and ahs. I'm not a huge fan of those. They have to be done. You have to be Blink-182 really to get away with that. My favorite song from Parkway Drive is also on this album, which is Hollow. I've always loved that song. I've always loved that chorus. I just love the low-end drop A tuning and how well it's played. The chorus is just captivating and heavy and awesome, and then just like the breakdowns and like good memories to that song. I think this album could have been probably their best if they just had stuck the landing a little bit better. With Set to Destroy, I don't know why they put that song at the end, kind of just a waste. Kind of dragged the score down a little bit. But other songs like Wreckage, which is kind of like the carry-on of this album, solid. Karma, another solid song, and like I said, Deliver Me and Sleepwalker, also great songs. Just a bit more of like a bassy, low-end, rhythm-driven version of Horizons. Yeah, Deep Blue, solid album, still holds up. Next up to finish off this three-way tie, at the number 2 spot is their first album, Killing with a Smile. Now, I wasn't actually fully familiar with this album from front to back. I was only familiar with like 2 songs. Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em, which I think was on a Tony Hawk game, like American Wasteland or something, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember just listening to them on like either one of those old compilation albums you got at Hot Topic, and this was on there, or I remember I'm like on a Tony Hawk game or something. Anyway, Killing with a Smile is one of those albums that I'm kind of sad that I slept on. I would have definitely enjoyed the fuck out of this in high school. Came out in 2005 during the golden age of metalcore, and this is a fucking incredible album. By the way, Adam Deutschwitz of Killswitch Engage produced it. So yet another brilliant album produced by this man. Much like Reverence, it's just a very consistent, easy listen. Really no slowing down, no steam lost. Favorite tracks are Pandora. I love the outro breakdown to Picture Perfect Pathetic. Mutiny is one of the best songs on the album, of course. And then, of course, Smoke Me If You Got 'Em, another solid track right there. Just a lot of breakdowns, a lot of raw energy, a lot of powerful vocals. Not a whole lot of lead guitar work compared to the number 1 album, but this is just like a true metalcore album that's just pissed off, it's angry, it's heavy, it's awesome, and I've really enjoyed it. That's why I'm like glad with these ranking reviews, because it really makes me glad that I've reintroduced myself to some of this stuff, and this is an awesome album, really holds up well. And the number 1 spot goes to Horizons, the album that got me into this band. The album that I also have like the most good memories to, in terms of like briefly dating a metalhead chick that didn't mind if my AC was broken, and we'd like made out in the back of my Jeep in sweaty ass Florida while this album was playing in the background. So I've got good memories to this album, but it was also playing during other good times as well. And I just think this is their best album. You got the heavy, powerful aggression of Killing with a Smile with a little bit more of a tweak to make it sound a bit more refined. And then, of course, the lead guitar work is just untouchable on this one. Like Siren Song, just the opening of that just fucking grips you with just like the heavy breakdowns, the lead work and everything. Winston sounds incredible. And then one of my favorite songs, Feed Them to the Pigs, has always been just an excellent follow-up to that. You got fucking Carry On, which is just like a classic of them. They maintain it throughout, that momentum, with 5 months, Boneyards, just a lot of great 2007 style riffs. Like, these guys really were in the thick. They might not be like one of the first bands I think of, but they definitely could hang like the Australian version of like what was going on here in the States with Killswitch, As I Lay Dying, Unearth. Like, these guys really were part of that golden age metalcore era, just probably in a different stretch. One of my favorite songs also, Idols and Anchors. I've always enjoyed that one, still one of their best. Moments in Oblivion is a great break, right before Breaking Point, which also has another freaking chaotically delicious intro. I love the heaviness of Dead Man's Chest, just that dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Like, it's just a breakdown heavy song, like meant to be played live. Frostbite, I enjoy it now more today than I did back then. I actually think it's got a great chorus. And then Horizons, just your epic long metalcore closer with just a very powerful, like, harmonized outro. Like, I just fucking love this album. I kind of thought this entire time it would be their best, but I just had to go back and go through. So let's recap. Least favorite to most favorite, but all solid albums. We got Darker Still, Ire, Reverence, Atlas, Deep Blue, Killing with a Smile, and their top album is Horizons. And the top 10 tracks are Deliver Me, Carry On, Swing, Feed Them to the Pigs, Snake Oil and Holy Water, Pandora, Mutiny, Idols and Anchors, Siren Songs, and of course, Hollow. So let me know in the comments what you agree or disagree with. How would you rank these differently? Do you like their newer sound more? Do you prefer their older metalcore sound? And yeah, just a fucking awesome band, and another one that I very much enjoyed doing. That's a couple bands in a row that I've been listening to for quite a while that I've had the chance to go back and do. So be sure to check out the other videos, subscribe, and let me know what you think, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace! No clit in the pit.